everybody. I'm Jamie of Pandora Astrology, and with me is Julia.
Hey guys.
And today we're going to talk about factions that are built right into the USA chart. And it's really no wonder that we feel at times like a country divided, because there is a dynamic in the USA chart that really suggests that if the USA was a person, that person would experience quite a bit of self-sabotage, actually. And so the dynamic is that the USA chart, and by the way, the chart that I use is the Sibley version of the chart, and as rectified by Dane Rudyar, in case you're curious. It yields a 13 degrees Sagittarius rising, which forms a really precise quincunx with the sun in the sign of Cancer over here. And that is exactly what we're talking about today. A quincunx is a super difficult relationship that two planets can have in a chart. And when two planets do form this weird 5/12 relationship, they are usually placed in two signs that have no meeting ground whatsoever. In this particular case, it's Cancer, which is a cardinal sign, so it has some drive, some movement, some motion. And it's also a water sign, so it's emotional, sensitive, feeling, caring, intuitive. Sagittarius, on the other hand, is a fire sign and a mutable sign. Mutable means it scatters its energies. It tends to be dispersive. And fire, of course, is inspired and inspiring, assertive, loud, and bold. So these two signs have extremely little meeting ground. I venture to say no meeting ground. And I think that they represent two different ways to be an American. And the reason is that these are both self-identifiers in any chart. The rising is the front door to you. It's your surface. It's how you come off to other people, how you present yourself, how you seem to others. It's a pretty strong point of identity, especially as regards boundaries and how you hold them. The sun, however, feels like your core. It's the heart of you. It's the center of you. And it's the source of pride and self-confidence. So if you're listening to me in a particular way, you may already be hearing what these factions could possibly be. The sun in Cancer represents those Americans who feel like being an American is about having a homestead. It's about putting down roots deep in this country. It's about a sense of belonging to the land that you live on. It's about your family, your heritage, and having been here for a long time. It's about blood. And I think through that, it is about race. It's about who are your people in the sense of your ancestors. And because the sun is involved, I think there's a very strong sense of pride there. So this homesteading thing is one of the ways to identify as an American. Now, the other way is that we are a melting pot. We are a mix of people who have come from all over the world. And that is very represented by this Sagittarius rising, which is very international, very multicultural, very much a mixture. And Sagittarius is the sign associated with travel, growth, expansion, culture, the exotic, the foreign. So Sagittarius represents the way to be an American as an immigrant or as a child of immigrants, bringing your culture here, adding it to the mix as a new flavor, making an ever more complex stew. And really, I think that the reason why Sagittarius is on the rise in this chart is because, well, it's best represented by Lady Liberty in the harbor in New York, welcoming people from everywhere, saying, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses longing to breathe free." And saying that we are a country with open boundaries specifically to welcome refugees those in need, and ready and willing to roll up their sleeves and make a better make a better life for themselves and what is to be their future family and heritage and their future roots in this country. So it's a really big dilemma, right? A quincunx is a super big dilemma, and really, never the twain shall meet is often the feeling of a quincunx. When you have two planets in a quincunx in your own chart, it can feel like they sabotage each other, they undercut each other, they can't even agree on how to argue. They're like ships that pass in the night, but shooting. um, Julia, what do you want to throw in at this point? I know you have thoughts about this, and I've been rattling on here. What are your
Oh,
thoughts?
about the quincunx specifically, the sun in astrology is a leadership planet. And just like the
Yeah.
sun is the center of our solar system, it kind of
Mm,
leads everything, all the other planets through its gravitational pull. So
yes.
when there are hard aspects between the sun and the ascendant-descendant axis, whatever affects the ascendant will make an aspect to the descendant as well.
Yes.
That axis, the ascendant represents self, and the descendant and the seventh house of this chart would represent other people, other countries that we interact with. So
Right.
that's a big relationship zone in the United States chart, and
Mm,
having a quincunx there might mean that our authority isn't too well received by other people, or
mm.
that we might come off as having a haughtiness or an arrogance around our authority, which might kind of turn people a little bit off too.
Yeah, when Americans travel, I think that they sometimes come off to other countries as somewhat entitled. And
Hmm.
I think that what you just described explains that. Um, and also, that Gemini descendant, I think, suggests that we like to come to, we like our country to come to its relationships with other countries in a space of communication,
Hmm.
to be a communicator in our connections with other countries, to not just broadcast and blare, as the Sagittarius rising would like to do, but to actually listen also and take the feedback. Um, when I talk with a person about a quincunx in their chart in session, I talk about two solutions to a quincunx. How can this be resolved? And those two solutions are extremely different from each other. They are just say no and radical inclusion. Just say no is where you separate the two parts of the quincunx and you live one and then you live the other, but you don't let them interfere with each other. I think of them as like two squabbling siblings, and you say, do I have to separate you two? And then you do, and you tell one of them, look, just here, take this coloring book and just go color for a while, and I'm just going to sit with your brother or sister, and like they're going to get all the attention right now, but you just take yourself away for a bit, okay? Hang. And then you really like be with and support and acknowledge and see the one side of the quincunx without interference from the other, and validate it so that it can feel strong and visible and like okay without the sabotage of the other side. And then you flip it and you do it the other way around so that both sides can come to this quincunx from a place of their own strength and their own confidence. And then you try radical inclusion, which is to operate in the narrow band of experience that these two actually share. And in that space, something magical can happen. When you relieve the stress of the quincunx by letting the two make all of their demands, and just occupying the very little space where they can actually agree, it's like all of the stress of it falls away, and some magical merging happens. I wonder if we're on the verge of that in this country. So the idea of just saying no as applied to our present circumstances would suggest that both sides have important concerns to bring to the table, which must be heard and understood. So that, and I'm gonna use some political language here because I think it's relevant and necessary. If you view the Sagittarius rising as being probably mostly Democratic Party, probably would be called coastal elites, educated people, by the Sun in Cancer faction, and the Sun in Cancer would represent the heartland. The Sun is the heart, right? It literally rules the heart, and so the Sun in Cancer represents the salt of the earth American who is firmly established in this country and feels a very strong sense of possession and ownership of this country, and who has been losing their jobs for a couple of decades now due to the expansionist nature of the Sagittarius rising. And there are very real concerns here that Sagittarius rising has got to listen to. Now, on the other hand, it's no fair for the Cancer Sun to say no more immigration because my family immigrated decades ago or 100 years ago, and now we're going to close the door on new immigrants. That's not fair either. So where to find the sweet spot in the middle is this country is a mix of many, many different kinds of people, many, many different kinds of bloodlines, and those should all be honored. Those should all be valued. Whether your ancestors came here on purpose or were brought here by force, you are an American and you belong. And that, I think, is the sweet spot in this quincunx. And we got to get the hell into that sweet spot and occupy it. Don't you think, Julia?
Yeah, well
I'm kind
said.
of tearing up. I'm getting all verklempt. Gosh, is there anything else we want to say here? Do you have other thoughts you want to throw out there, Julia?
Uh, yeah, just off the bat, what really pulls my attention in our chart is, that Jupiter-Venus conjunction.
Hmm.
That Jupiter-Venus conjunction, and
It's
also
really
Jupiter
sweet.
strong in the sign of its exaltation, bringing,
Yes.
receiving Venus. I mean, it's a very lucky chart. And we're a lucky country. Like, we will
Yeah.
withstand this, whatever we go through, and we've got a little bit of extra juice on, our side.
Yeah.
Rules are midheaven. We can move forward if we need to. That Uranus on the descendant being maybe one of our strongest planets, because anything within 5 degrees of an angle is just super charged, or any conjunction to an angle. But we're really individualistic. We're really
Yes.
technology oriented. We always have been as Americans. Like, we've always been developing things, and that is
Yeah,
a huge
true.
part of our identity as well.
I really love that you pointed especially to that Jupiter in Cancer because I think that really kind of brings it all together because that Sagittarius rising is ruled by Jupiter and Jupiter is exalted in Cancer.
Yeah.
And I think that really what that is saying is all of America is your family. And we are all related as one human race. And, all of our ancestors go back to just one person. Well, it's not quite that simple, but we're all related. And so it might be about expanding, for some people, expanding their idea of what family is. And, or it might be about contracting your idea of what's foreign so that foreigners are family. I think there's a very strong feeling for family in this chart.
Very strong. Yeah.
Mm,
And experimentalism, tribalism and experimentalism.
yeah, love that. Mm. Okay, well, I think we said everything we wanted to. I hope you enjoyed it. You'll find this video on our August 2020 news playlist on our YouTube channel, Pandora Astrology. You can always find interesting things like this on our monthly forecast page at pandoraastrology.com. You can also find horoscopes there, and you can tap us for readings too if you want a reading. We are probably available staying at home on Zoom.
Mhm.
So until next time, I'll see you around the cosmos. Bye.